Biden's border crisis causing a free-for-all in America's largest liberal city. Hundreds of illegal immigrants lining up outside a New York City hospital, bussed there by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. The city offering migrants free phones, food, health care, and many are being put up in $400 a night luxury hotels. Now, these great perks coming, of course, courtesy of the American taxpayer. The New York Post summing it up as, quote, land of the free. But what about the American citizens who are already here? Do they get a handout as well? Nope. Rent prices have been exploding all across the country. One person forced to pay nearly $20,000 just in order to secure a one-bedroom apartment. So, Joey, I'm going to start with you. You hear all these handouts. What's the message to America's homeless veterans or families who are struggling? And I mentioned this as well. When this whole border stuff started heating up under Joe Biden, and I heard they were putting illegal migrants inside of barracks, I thought, well, why haven't we been doing that with homeless veterans? So what's the message to the American people when they see this?
Well, it's Kelly. I don't personally equate those two things because I think they're two problems with two different root issues. It's easy, though, to look at that and say, where are your priorities, government? I would say that the Democrat Party would love to have veterans on their dime as well so that they can be pacified and bring their votes in as well. They love any class of Americans. Sure. They can put into a position where they need the government to make ends meet. With illegal immigrants, though, and that is the root cause of this issue, this problem is so old news that I laugh at it. I mean, I grew up in a town in the 90s where this was a problem. My grandfather worked next to an illegal immigrant every day for 7 years. That illegal immigrant paid $1 in taxes. My grandfather paid a lot more. When the government caught up to him, he left. He came back 6 months later under a different name and Social Security number, continued to do the same thing, and that happened over and over again. The infrastructure for fraudulent identities in this country is a problem, and it's something that the government knows about. It's something that in some ways both partisan sides are complicit in, because in the 90s it was great to have all that cheap labor. Well, now it's a little bit harder to do that, and so everybody's gotten more creative. But the immigration problem starts and ends with a government so dysfunctional that it can't do what most Americans are asking it to do, which is to reform immigration and have a policy that makes sense. And I go back and I beat this dead horse, and that's okay because dead horses don't feel anything. I beat this dead horse. Nancy Pelosi had a deal with President Trump to fund the wall and in return get a codified DACA and reforms in visa applications, something the Democrats wanted. She didn't take it because she couldn't give President Trump the win, and she knew she might have a chance at winning in the courts, what she did on DACA. So when you talk about doing what's best for the people, that's always going to come second for what's best for partisan politics, especially for those like Nancy that are in power. And that's where we are.
So, Jesse, Joey talks about the politics of it. There's also a lot of money in all of this illegal immigration. There are NGOs, Catholic charities, Lutheran charities, other NGOs that are making a lot of money. These hotels are making a lot of money. There's a business behind this.
There is. If I were a homeless person in America, I'd be upset because I used to be the toast of the town in Manhattan. Remember? De Blasio was letting me stay in hotels for free. Joe was sending me free crack pipes. I mean, I could do pretty much whatever I wanted. I could light the Fox News Christmas tree on fire and walk out the next day from jail, no bail. And now all of a sudden, there's like some better-looking person in town that the Democrats are just falling all over. They're giving them free health care. They're doing interviews. They get the new Biden phone. I'm still stuck with the old Obama phone. It doesn't even work. I actually saw a homeless guy today on the Upper East Side with a phone. And he was in a sleeping bag. It was like an REI sleeping bag. It was a really nice sleeping bag. They shouldn't have all this kind of stuff. So right now, the migrants are like the new victim flavor of the week. And if you're homeless and you're American, I'm sorry, go to the back of the line. But if you're a parent in Manhattan, I'd be even more angry because my child, that was a lost year during COVID. And so you're already behind. And now you're putting, like 5 migrants into your 4th grade classroom. They don't really speak English. Don't you think that's going to slow the lesson plan down? Yeah. I mean, you might get a better soccer team out of it. I'm sure the coaches are asking Abbott to send buses faster before the season starts. Very good soccer players. But it can't continue to happen, and Joe Biden can shut this thing down right now. If he wanted to, but you know what he's doing? He's building a fence around his house in Delaware. So people don't trespass onto his property, but he'll let anybody else trespass on the rest of our property. I can't believe no one's asked Joe about that.
Just want you to know I have 9 Latino kids, no good soccer players.
No, what happened? What happened?
I don't know. Maybe when you get a hockey player, Irish Wisconsin husband, something goes wrong.
Yeah,
You should actually get it from both sides on that. The athletic ability should be strong.
We should probably move on.
All right. All right, Harold. Somebody else at the back of the line. So all of these services are coming from the city's Immigration Affairs Office. A part of it, some of it's coming from other parts. But, you know, the other people who are at the back of the line are those people who feel like chumps for trying to come here legally, who are following the rules. What about them? Is this fair to them?
Probably not. I'd say no. What I don't get, and Joey, I appreciate you differentiating between some of and Rachel meant nothing more than just talking about ways in which we allocate resources in our country, and you talking about that veterans should be treated. I don't think Democrats want everybody on the dole, but I do think you're right. We should separate how we think about this. But I don't know what we're trying to get at here. I think Mayor Adams and Governor Abbott had it out a week or two ago verbally, and I think Governor Abbott got the better of that exchange at the beginning. And I think Mayor Adams is trying to figure out how we grapple, and I give him a lot of credit for saying we're going to help those who are in need. But the question I have is, what is the long-term answer here? You were getting at the long-term answer in terms of immigration reform, but what do we plan on doing? Do we just want, as Americans, busloads of people whom are crossing the border legally or illegally to just be shipped around the country on buses and be integrated into communities? I read the...
We don't want to cross the border to begin with.
Yeah, what if there was remain in Mexico and they never actually crossed?
I'm trying to agree with you, but with trying to develop a process. I don't get what's going on here. And again, I think what we need to do, we need to build a wall there at the border with the DACA reforms we've talked about. We need an asylum process that is expedited. We need to send more judges down there to ensure whether it's remain in Mexico or wherever. Even it should not just be remain in Mexico. It should be remain in wherever these people are from. Yeah. To me, the border is a national security issue. Yes. And it's becoming a humanitarian crisis because we've allowed it in many ways, and we shouldn't kid ourselves. This has gone on for a long time. When I was in Congress, her boss, Dana's boss, tried to negotiate with John McCain, tried to negotiate a immigration reform plan, and we've had these things blow up. You know why? Because each side gets a little out of this somewhere along the line.
You
each side is able to exploit
virtue signaled that you guys were sanctuary cities, and Abbott took you up on your offer, so you guys have to do the work now.
But this is not the answer to this. And I don't know of any Democrat or Republican that believes
what's the question?
People across.
What's the question, then?
We have a national security crisis at our border that we have to address.
You're right, but Abbott's not saying it's the answer. He's saying it's the only way to get Democrats to care about the answer.
I'm not faulting Abbott. I'm saying this is a national issue that needs to be addressed.
So we got a Fox News alert. You're for the wall.
I've been for the wall for 2 years.
I love it. I'm glad. Here's another problem. One migrant told Dana, NPR, that he stayed at a New York City shelter and he was scared for his life. He told the reporter, "I'd 1,000 times rather stay in the streets than a shelter in New York City." He called for the mayor. He's one of the ones that didn't get the 4-star hotel. He called for the mayor and the city to offer more support, but he said, this was interesting, not just for illegals, he called for the city to take better care of their own people that are in dire straits.
Okay, so control room, don't get mad at me because I know you said we have to go. But this is my favorite topic. It's my favorite story of the month. It might be my favorite story of the year.
Okay.
Because now you take those two issues, immigration and crime, and now you don't just have hypothetical situations. You have blue cities having to defend the policies that they like. So now you have to test the fact that the border is open. And then now Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., is asking for the National Guard. In fact, she just asked for more. She originally got turned down. Now she's asking for more. The Washington Post editorial page says today, boy, the mayor, you've got to really prepare for this. This is really bad. But nowhere in the editorial does it say Joe Biden and his administration should do something different. They don't say anything like build a wall. Then you have the question of sanctuary cities. Oh, the sanctuary is great until it's happening in your schools. And then you have the issue of the fact that you have free social services. Well, that sounds really good until you start to put it into practice. So finally, it might not be the right solution, but you're finally changing the conversation because we are 18 months into this administration and you have not had any media cover the story. I don't see how the media covers this story. They're so worried about the migrants that are coming here, and no one talks about the fact of how they got here in the first place. Yes. It's actually quite an art that the media is performing right now.
Dina,
thank you.
I thought you tied that together brilliantly.
Thank you.
And you're right. I thought it was a silly stunt by Abbott. I think it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
A lot of people tied things together brilliantly on that side.
Up next, the Biden White House shooting down efforts to fix the massive teacher shortage in our country.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.